Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah, wa salatu salam wa rasulullah. We continue reading from Imam Al-Ghazali's Criterion of Action, Mizan al-Amal. And we have reached the types of knowledge and action that lead to paradise. بيان جنس العمل بيان جنس العلم والعمل الموصلين إلى جنة المأوى. You might ask, فإن قلت, there are many kinds of knowledge and diverse forms of action, and not all of them are desirable. What is the beneficial kind that I could pursue? My answer is that knowledge is divided into the practical and the theoretical. There are many kinds of theoretical knowledge, but every type of knowledge is subject to change with times, places, and communities. We know that the fatwa changes by this, so the fatwa is really specific to a person in a specific context, specific times, for it is neither inherited nor stored in the soul forever. Our goal in seeking knowledge is to bring the soul to its perfection so that it can prepare itself through it and be resplendent in its glory and beauty forever. This excludes such things as knowledge of languages and the meaning and usage of words, such as the study of rhetoric, grammar, poetry, epistolography, and lexicography. Epistolography and lexicography. If any of these are needed, they should be sought not for their own sake, but as means of attaining desirable knowledge. We know that language in itself is from ulum al-ala, meaning that it is needed in as much as one needs to understand the text of the Quran, of the Hadith, of probably we can insert linguistics right at the very beginning. Now, if any of these are needed, they should be sought not for their own sake, but as means of attaining desirable knowledge. However, our purpose here is to explain what desirable knowledge is. Somehow on language, because the very first thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam was language. It has also been highlighted in different contexts in the Quran. وعلم آدم الأسماء كلها, and he subhanahu wa ta'ala taught Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam the names of all things, and علمه البيان, that's another verse. The first one about Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam immediately could be employed, that story, in favor of the theories of acquiring language that stipulate that language is acquired from a social context, and it does have an innate, that's Chomsky, an innate ability, if you will. So both of these are included in the story of Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam, not as in Genesis in the Torah, as is in the Old Testament, where Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam names things on his own. That is impossible. That's impossible. We learn language from our own context, parents, extended family, whoever's in our context, we learn language from him or her. Sayyidina Adam alayhi salam had no one to learn from him, so it had to be from a divine source. It was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who taught him. So in this case, we don't talk about it pertains now this meta language about the origins of language pertains to theology, not to linguistics. Yeah, yeah. Of course, one needs to delve into linguistics, but the aim here is the ultimately the theological aspect. Hope the message is clear. If we wish to define what Hajj is, we would not need to speak about socks and water jugs, even though the pilgrim needs to make use of both on the course of his journey. Uh, I think al khuf, because here it has been translated as socks. Al khuf is not restricted. I mean, khuf. There is, if you have seen usually the tablighi Jama'ah, a wonderful group that is apolitical, a simple worldview. They would like to invite people to Muslims to come to pray to the mosque, and they might also talk to non-Muslims. But usually they do wear these khuf. So let me say that it does almost like leather socks, but they are not socks really in particular. I just wanted to say that much. So المسح على الخف, of course, مسح على الجبيرة, مسح على الجورب. These are three different things. We wish to make distinct those types of knowledge, those or whose content will remain forever without erasure or change. Such knowledge as does not alter with changing times and communities. This ultimately means knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His qualities, angels, books, and messengers, and the dominion of heaven and earth, and the marvels of human and animal souls, inasmuch as they are ordained by Allah's power, not for their own sake. The ultimate purpose is knowledge of Allah. Allah's angels must be known because they are the mediators between Allah and the prophets. This between Allah and the Prophet, this same chain may be applied to all other branches of theoretical knowledge. Their ultimate purpose is knowledge of Allah, but there are many facets to this matter, since some of them are used to access others, which is why there is so much to say about it. The second category is practical knowledge, which constitutes three sciences. First, there is the science of the soul and its qualities and traits, which means spiritual discipline and the struggle against caprice. This is the primary subject of this book. Secondly, there is the science of the proper way to live with one's family. Children, with one's family, children, servants, and slaves. For they are also your servants, just as your own extremities. Your limbs, organs, and faculties are your servants. And just as you must direct the affairs of your body, faculties such as appetite, irritability, and so on, you must also direct the affairs of those people. Then there is the science of nation and regional politics. I have more than once in different contexts I said that whenever we mention slavery, we should mention what I have been taught since my childhood, uh, that Islam came to end this phenomenon. It existed before Islam, and we can see how systematically Islam ended this phenomenon, and we should prevent any attempt to bring it back. It has been attributed to Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab رضي الله عنه. He said, متى استعبدتم الناس وقد ولدتهم أمهاتهم أحرارا. Once you enslave people where their mothers gave birth to them as free persons. So national and regional politics and order, which is generally the primary function of the science of jurisprudence, except for the parts about personal worship. This includes judiciary ethics, adab al-qada, and also requires knowledge of the laws of marriage, trade, and taxation. Okay, the laws of marriage, trade, nikah, al-bay'. Now, al-jirah, there has al-jirah and al-kharaj, they look the same. Except that with al-jirah we have it's just like simply the dots. In the old days before the invention, before Abu al-Aswad Du'ali used the tanqit, they did look the same, identically. Now, a hint might come from the fact that we talk about the what do you judge? What do you judge? I mean, when you judge amongst people, what is it about? Marriage, okay? Marriage, divorce, all these issues within the family. Number two, people have conflicts in trade. This is why Sayyidina Umar al-Khattab again said that those who are not fuqaha, like they don't know the halal and haram, they don't know fiqh, they should not trade in the market. Now, is taxation or is it jirah? That is more, I'm just going to leave it open. Is it taxation? Is it kharaj? And kharaj, okay, because the word taxation also is, might not reflect everything about kharaj, but at any rate. So is it taxation? Is it kharaj? Or is it jirah? When the judge would rule and the compensation and the Wallahu alam. So we'll leave it open. The most important of these three sciences is the refinement of the soul and the direction of the body and the observation of equilibrium in these qualities. For as long as they are in equilibrium, their balance will spread to the more distant concerns of family and children, and then to the wider population. as stated in Hadith. This is inserted by the rightly by the translator because it is a Hadith. All of you are shepherds, and all of you are responsible for their flock. كلكم راع وكلكم مسؤول عن رعيته. It's of course part of a longer hadith. By the way, متفق عليه, narrated by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. In that hadith, it does enumerate some of those who are responsible, those shepherds, the emir, the prince, and by extension, simply the king, the governor, the khalifa, the political level, if you will. They are amongst them the man in his family, the wife, even the slave is included in the in shepherding and being a rai, being masul al ra'it. He's entrusted with taking care of the property of the master. But again, this is very problematic because the aim was from the very beginning. It's different. Everything else flows from this, just as the obligation of zakat follows from owning the minimum amount of wealth, the zakatable. And just as light shines from the sun and shade is cast by the tree. If the tree is crooked, one can hardly expect its shadow to be straight. If a man cannot direct and control his own body, how can he hope to direct anyone else? These then are the constituents of practical knowledge. Let us now turn to an overview of the knowledge that is more specific than these sciences of direction, for it is our chief interest here. The constituents of the faculties that must be refined are three: the cogitative faculty, the cogitative faculty, cogito, ergo sum. So the cogitative faculty, the aql, the appetitive faculty, the shahwa, and the irascibility, or the irascible faculty, which is the غضب, قوة الغضبية, قوة الغضب. When the cogitative faculty is refined and restored to its proper state, it leads to the attainment of wisdom, of which Allah says, "He who is given wisdom has been given much good. وَمَنْ يُؤْتَ الْحِكْمَةَ فَقَدْ أُوتِيَ خَيْرًا كَثِيرًا." The fruit of this is that it helps him to tell truth from falsehood in matters of doctrine, sincerity from deceit in matters of speech, and foul from fair and in matters of action. None of these will be confusing for him, as it is for most people. What we said in Mi'yar al-Ilm will help with the rectifying and refinement of this faculty. The second faculty is the appetite. Rectifying it leads to the attainment of temperance, so that the soul is discouraged from engaging in abominations and is directed toward consolation and praiseworthy selflessness to the extent of the individual's capacity. The third faculty is irascibility. Conquering and rectifying it leads to the attainment of forbearance, which means suppressing anger and restraining the soul from seeking vengeance. It also leads to the attainment of courage, which means restraining the soul from cowardice and avarice, two vices condemned in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Regarding Qadm al-Ghayth, suppressing anger, in the Quran, وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. It's important to, first of all, the Quran does not require you not to have anger, it requires you to suppress anger. This negative energy within you, control it. That's number one. Number two, do forgive. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. We don't talk about rights of the Ummah, we don't talk rights of on that level. An individual right, okay? Most conflicts we talk about within the society are based on individual rights. And I'm going to give an example. And number three, وَاللَّهُ يُحِبُّ الْمُحْسِنِينَ. Go beyond forgiveness, be charitable. And the story that I would like to share with you, a professor, Iraqi professor, an old man, very respectful. We were colleagues at the International Islamic University in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And a double stroke motorcycle, it's more of a, it is a motorcycle anyhow, but these are the cheapest motorcycles ever. It has a pedal. You assist the motorcycle by pedaling like a bicycle, but it does burn gas. They mix the gas with oil. This is why there is plenty of smoke on the streets in Southeast Asia. So one of those bikers hit him rear end. All over the world, if you hit from the rear, if you hit somebody else rear end, it's your responsibility. So this professor controlled his anger. That's what وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظَ. He forgave him. وَالْعَافِينَ عَنِ النَّاسِ. Now the motorcycle itself suffered some damage, and we know very well that such a bike is the vehicle of poor families in Southeast Asia. If he does not have the bike ready, fixed, then there is no work, there is no food. Very poor people indeed. So he was hit, suppressed his anger, forgave him, and he gave him money to fix his bike. This is ihsan. That's an example that I will continue, inshallah, sharing with people. It's a very beautiful example. When these three faculties are rectified and controlled in the way they ought to be, and to the extent they ought to be, two of them will become subordinate to the other, namely the intellective, cogitative faculty, and equilibrium will be achieved. This equilibrium is the very same upon which heaven and earth subsist. It is the totality of the graces of the law, the purity of the soul, and the beauty of praiseworthy character. As the Prophet ﷺ said, the believer with the most perfect faith is the one with the best character and the kindest to his family. This hadith is sahih, it is sound. All the narrators of this tradition are thiqat, trustworthy. They fulfill Like everything about this hadith fulfills the criterion of both al-Bukhari and Muslim, except that they did not themselves narrate it. So it is a sound tradition. Okay. He also said, the Prophet ﷺ, the most beloved of you, to me, are those with the best character, the humble, amiable ones who get on well with others. It's a beautiful hadith. There are other traditions that attest to the essence of this hadith, to the ethos of this hadith, to the message of this hadith. Okay. On its own, it has some weakness in the narration, but look at the meaning. It's a very beautiful meaning. And let's remember that there is a hadith of Aisha anha about the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. كان خلق القرآن. It's like an embodiment of every beautiful character in the Quran sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The primary sources of Islamic teachings are filled with praise for good character, and the meaning of good character is the rectifying of these three faculties. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala summarizes this in His words. The believers are only those who believe in Allah and His Messenger, and then do not doubt, and who struggle with their possessions and their lives for Allah's cause. Such are the sincere. إنما المؤمنون الذين آمنوا بالله ورسوله ثم لم يرتابوا وجاهدوا بأموالهم وأنفسهم في سبيل الله أولئك هم الصادقون. Belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, devoid of any doubt, denotes certain knowledge and real wisdom, which cannot possibly be attained without rectifying the faculty of cogitation. Struggling with one's possessions denotes temperance and generosity, which necessarily follow the rectifying of the appetite. Struggling with one's life denotes courage and forbearance, which follow the rectifying of irascibility and its subordination to religion and the intellect, so that it rouses when they rouse and stills when they still. This is indicated by Allah's words, be forgiving and enjoin what is right, and turn away from the ignorant. SubhanAllah. خذ العفو وأمر بالعرف وأعرض عن الجاهلين. And it has been said, this means to forgive those who wrong you, and to give to those who deny you, and to mend ties with those who forsake you, and to be good to those who are bad to you. Forgiving those who wrong you is the peak of courage and forbearance. Giving to those who deny you is the peak of generosity. Mending ties with those who forsake you is the peak of kindness. وأن تعفو عمن ظلمك وتعطي من حرمك وتصل من قطعك. فالعفو عمن ظلمك هو نهاية الحلم والشجاعة، وإعطاء من حرمك هو نهاية الجود، ووصل من قطعك هو نهاية الإحسان. So we have reached the end of this topic. Inshallah, tomorrow we will deal with بيان مثال النفس مع هذه القوى المتنازعة. A parable of the soul and its warring faculties. Until then, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.